and happy National Scrapbooking Day to you all. Today I'm just going to show you a couple of techniques for this card I'm making. Ironically, yes, it's a card and not a scrapbook layout. But I'm showing you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to give you a little challenge at the end, and together we're going to put together this card. So I am using the Far Far Away card kit from Studio Calico, mainly because it comes with this really awesome stamp set with the pineapple that we're going to be using today. I've gone ahead and I've cut a card base out of the yellow cardstock that came in it, and a white panel as well, and I'll be using that a little bit later on. But we're just going to jump straight ahead into this first technique, which is basically a paper piecing technique. So we need to stamp the pineapple first. Now whenever I'm stamping, I like to just use a foam mouse mat to stamp on, because otherwise I've got this wooden table here, yes, which is filthy dirty, but that's just the way I work, I'm sorry. So the foam mat just makes it a little bit softer, and it gives a much sort of clearer impression. So I've just got a scrap of white cardstock here from a previous project. I'm inking up my stamp with some Versamark embossing ink. And yes, I also realise my acrylic block is slightly too small for this stamp set, but we're going to go with it. Scrap piece of paper underneath whenever I'm embossing, and I'm just using this American Crafts Gold Zing, the glitter version. So we're going to do two lots. I'm stamping on the white cardstock underneath, put that aside for a second, and then we're also going to stamp on some pattern papers from the paper pad, and we'll probably stick with some more traditional pineapple colours, the green for the top and the yellow for the pineapple. You could of course be rather adventurous and do whatever colours you like, and we're going to stamp on both of these coloured papers as well. Once for the yellow pineapple base, sorry, I realise you can't see that, and we'll zing that up too. And once on the green for the leaves. Now I'm just going to go ahead and heat emboss all of those images, and I won't subject you to the sound of my heat gun. So I've gone ahead and heat embossed all three of those images, and then I've cut out the white one and the yellow one as well, just because that'd be a little bit tedious for you to have to watch me do that. Now your white one is really just a guide. It's going to be sort of the base, so technically you might not need to emboss it, but I think the gold is so pretty. But what we're going to do, so I've cut out the yellow base, and then I'm just going to take it one strip at a time, and I'm literally going to cut this pineapple apart into those segments that it's stamped in. So the first one's a little bit tricky because it's very teeny tiny. Just adding a tiny little glue dot. This is Glossy Accents to each of those segments, and then just so I don't get them confused as I go along, I'm just taking one section at a time. And what I do is I just slightly bend up each segment before I stick it down, and I'm just sticking it down, you know, where it goes, but I'm purposely not wanting it to be perfect. I say purposely, but just because it's way easier that way as well. But it also just gives it, you know, that kind of imperfect feel to it, that handmade feel, and a bit more texture, so I like that. Now when I cut apart each segment, I'm cutting straight through the middle of that gold embossing so that there's a little bit on each side of the segment, and then just gluing each part down in turn. So you can see how that's going to develop a nice sort of texture and dimension. So that's how I'm going to do the, the yellow bits. And then for this top one, again, just I'm cutting through the middle of that gold embossing. The gold embossing from your base image will show up around any edges anyway. So that's that, and then I'm going to go ahead and just cut in on each of these lines as well, and you'll see why in a second, because that way now I can flip up each one individually. So that goes on the top. So I'm just adding glue to the bottom so that those top ones can bend out. See that? Now I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these segments, and again I'll just pause the video here so that you don't have to watch me do all of these tiny little bits. Might get a little bit boring for you. So there it is, my pineapple in all its glory, and that's going to just basically become the centerpiece of my card. It's going to be a really sort of simple, straightforward design. Now I promised you 2 techniques. So the second one that we're going to do, so we take this white panel from the card and we're going to do some more embossing on that, but this time with some clear embossing, or you could use white embossing powder, and I'm stamping up the sentiment this time, and it's going to be in a sort of repetitive design all the way across the card. The first bit I'm just stamping off the edge so that it's not completely lined up, and you can do a couple of these in a row and then emboss and then sort of see how you're going. So let's go with that. Get my scrap piece of paper again. This is clear embossing powder, or no, actually I'm using white. So it's going to look like that. I'm going to keep on going ahead and stamp the rest of these all the way down my page. And then I'll heat emboss it and I'll come back and show you how it's looking. So here I've gone ahead and finished embossing all of those lines. Now you can just kind of see it there. You know, one thing I'll point out is that I'm not certainly purposely trying to line them up and make them all neat. As I said before, in fact I prefer that kind of messy look. Plus it's much quicker and easier. Now, so, you know, the white on white is kind of a cool look, and you could just keep it like that, but we're just going to add some colour with some Colour Theory inks. So I'm just putting my scrap paper down. Again, I've got my blending tool here. I've picked out a couple of different pink colours, or pink and coral colours, and you know, it's better to start off with a lighter colour, so I'm going to kind of go in first with the Coral Bay colour here, and I'm working from sort of the outside in. So I'm starting off and going in a circular motion to bring that colour in. And I'm just going around all the edges here. Again, not aiming for any kind of perfect method here, just getting some colour in. So that's the Coral Bay. We'll add a little bit of the Blush Crush as well to these edges. Just filling in any sort of gaps as we're going along. And yeah, the middle's kind of still white, that's okay. It's going to be covered up a little bit by our finished embellishments anyway. Just adding the last darker colour just to the very edges. And this is Flamingo. Okay, so I think that just about does the colour that I want to add. So I'll show you how this card is going to come together. We've got our yellow base, our now pink panel, and the pineapple that's going to go on there. And I've gone ahead and cut a die cut thanks out of gold paper, and that's going to just sort of stick at the top there. So something like that. I'm going to glue those things down, do my sort of standard stitching around the edges here on the sewing machine, and I think that's kind of going to be it as far as the card is concerned, but I'll come back and just quickly show you the finished product and see if I add any little bits and pieces to the end. Well, there it is in a nutshell. Very simple design, but a couple of cool techniques in there. And given that it's National Scrapbook Day and this card is my challenge to you over at Big Picture Classes, the challenge is for you to create either a layout or a card or whatever project you would like with a stamped image, or particularly I'm talking about like this pieced pattern paper pieced stamping technique. I can't wait to see what you all come up with, and in the meantime I hope you all enjoy National Scrapbooking Day. Bye.